Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, if it's too loud or a little bit more. I think I just move it up closer, right? And I'll talk a little louder, see how that works. Perfect? Okay. So my name is Stacy Nagorski. I am working out of the Appleton office, and I think that I am the first in a series. I think you guys have 2 or 3 of us coming to chat with you over the next few weeks on a variety of different topics. I'm just really thankful for the invitation to be able to chat with you folks about what I would consider a very important topic. I think it's fair to say anxiety and stress probably impact every one of us in some form or fashion, either in situations and momentarily or ongoing throughout a lifespan. And so I think that being able to kind of use this space to unpack what those differences are between stress and anxiety, and also talk about, well, what can I do about it? What are some practical, tangible things that I can do in my own situation to help work with that is kind of what I'd love to be able to do today. So that's where we're going to begin. I'm pretty informal. I wander around, and I'm welcoming questions as we go. Certainly there will be time. I'll be around somewhere after service and stuff if you have other questions. There were handouts in the back as well. You will not need these during our time, but if you'd like them, there's a little sheet, and then there's a little card. These are coping cards. On one side, there's a Bible passage, and they're not the same. There's a couple different ones back there. And then there's little coping strategies that you can take and throw in your wallet or your pocket and take with you. So if you didn't get one, they're in the back, and I will leave them here when I leave, so you can certainly grab those when you go as well. So let's see if this clicker works. Here we go. So the first place we usually always begin in any of our time in presentation is to look at what does Scripture say. I think that no matter what the question is, no matter what the concern is, no matter what the issue is, Jesus is usually the answer, right? And so we know that all the ingredients and the recipes are provided for us right there in Scripture. And so we wanted to be able to provide an opportunity. That's also in your handout. But listed here are a few that I would have you just focus on for a minute. So God does tell us that we will have trouble, likely to cause stress. However, he also tells us not to worry about it. So we see in the John passage, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. These are comforting components when we really sit in them, right? Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Unceasingly, that's not in the passage, but he says that too, right? All the time. Bring the stuff to him. It's like your primary coping skill, right? And often, unfortunately, what happens is we're having a hardship, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this, and we tried everything else, but we didn't pray about it yet, right? So if we reverse that, we put that at the top, and we take it to him first, all that other stuff, sometimes we don't even need it, right? And so really making sure you're anchoring yourself to the Word on a regular basis is a really important part of how you're going to approach not only stress and anxiety, but everything that's sitting in your life at this point. So what is stress? That looks like a stressful situation for that little chickie, right? I would offer for you to consider that sometimes we use the idea of stress and anxiety interchangeably. We use them as verbs. We use them as descriptions. I'm stressing out. I'm stressed out. I'm in a stressful situation. There are very close similarities between what you experience in your body and mind and emotions with both stress and anxiety, but they are slightly different. So that's something that I'd like to kind of first start with. I'm going to offer that stress is very closely tied to perception. And our perceptions are all very different. Our mindset, our attitude, and our approach are all very, very different. Our reaction when the demands of a situation exceed our resources. So our resources would be our energy, our physical health, our financial, our time, right? These are all resources. And our reaction occurs, a stress reaction, when the demands of a situation exceed any of those resources, often caused by events that are perceived as endangering our well-being. Some would disagree with this idea of perception, and that's okay, but I do think that if all of us right now experienced an event, something happened that would be a stressful situation in this room, every one of us would receive that information and have a different level of response. And most often that's going to be based on our mindset, the way that we approach and look at life events. And so what I'm going to encourage is, while it's difficult, working yourself to develop a growth mindset, a positive mindset that's anchored on the cross, will absolutely help you in processing all these life events that come our way. And we're going to give you some tools on how to do that today as well. Any questions on kind of what we mean by stress? All right. Any of these look familiar to anyone? Maybe all of us, all of them. The first two, money and work, closely tied together, yet generally in any graph or chart, you will see as the number one cause of stress and anxiety and worry and hardship. And it's interesting because sometimes it's, I don't have enough work. I don't have a job. I need to find a job. And sometimes it's, I'm working 90 hours a week and I can't catch a break and I need to see my family, right? It's both sides of it, right? Family responsibility. This is the hustle. This is the getting the kid to the place, to the thing, and getting the laundry and the chores and the food and the groceries, and a high five to your spouse if you see him for a few minutes, right? This is managing, like, getting it all done. It can be very, very stressful. Relationship. Kids, spouse, friendships, girlfriend, boyfriend. These can be high sources of stress. And then health, I would say, would be whether it's your health or the health of somebody that you love or are caring for, these can be big causes of stress as well. Personal safety, we tend to see more in situations of specific domestic stress and location. People that report living in an unsafe situation, it's on the regular, they're hearing the sirens or they're hearing, commotion right outside their door. That can cause a high level of alert, and their personal safety is threatened, really, or that perception of it. So that's one that kind of, depending on your situation, you may or may not feel that stress that your personal safety is impacted. But that's one as well. Oops. So we want to kind of look at the warning signs. I think the key to any of these things, when we're talking about mental, emotional health, the biggest piece I want you guys to kind of go away with is to develop a good understanding of paying attention to where you're at. I think sometimes we get into the busyness of it all, the chase, we go on autopilot, we just kind of go and we keep doing, and we stop paying attention to what's happening in my body, what's happening in my mind, what's happening in my behavior. That's a very simple, I'll call it a filter question check. I do it several times a day, often in between clients, because it helps you recenter yourself or reground yourself. And I would encourage anybody, wake up in the morning and do the little check, right? What's happening in my body? I'm feeling relaxed. I'm feeling cold. I'm feeling hungry, right? My pinky toe hurts. Whatever. What's happening? Top to bottom. What's happening in my body? Have some awareness of your gut and your breathing and all those things. What's happening in my mind? So often we're in this hustle, we're chasing, right? What's happening next? I got to get here, I got to do the thing, and if I don't do this, then that'll happen. If I do this, then that'll happen. And it creates this fast pace that does inform what's happening in my behavior. Behavior are the things that people can see, right? So I'm isolating myself, I'm lashing out, I'm crabby, I'm tearful, I'm over anything, over consuming, over spending, over drinking, over anything, over binge watching my favorite Netflix, over social networking, over anything. Those are behaviors that happen as a way, a maladaptive behavior to help cope with what's happening in your mind and what's happening in your body. And so really paying attention to, what am I doing right now? How am I feeling right now? Where am I at right now? is going to be really important to help you get ahead of this, because if we can get a jump on what's going on, it's going to help you figure out how to align a coping skill that will be useful and helpful in managing whatever stress thing is about to come or is coming your direction. Okay, so those are warning signs. We want to make sure that we're always checking what's happening in my mind, what's happening in my body, what's happening in my behavior numerous times a day. These are cognitive signs. These are going to mimic things that you might experience with depression. They are going to mimic probably a variety of different things, but they are cues that there's something going on here that I want to pay attention to. So when you're doing that check on what's happening in my thoughts, if you're experiencing concentration difficulties, pay attention to that. Stress makes us more distractible. We have a greater difficulty focusing our minds on what we're trying to do, whether that's work or cleaning or being present in a moment with a relationship with somebody. When our heads are somewhere else than whatever you're doing right now, that is a sign that we might have something going on. You also may notice that you keep drifting to the worry or the stressor. So you center yourself, you bring yourself back, but all of a sudden your head goes back to that place, and before you know it, you're back thinking about the budget or the kid or the relationship or the thing or whatever it is, right? And that feeling, I continue to say, the racing or the hustle or the chasing, that feeling like you can't catch up with yourself and you just keep going and going and going, but it's not with intention. It's out of survival. That is a really big one that we will call, and we'll get to when we talk about anxiety in a little while, but that is going to be known as hypervigilance. It's in the DSM, it's diagnosable, and it's a big one. And I think often many of us feel that. And so being able to quiet and settle is going to help you be intentional about the choices that you're making and the problem solving that you're doing. So recognizing if I'm in that mode of chasing and I can't catch up, that's definitely a sign that we have something going on there. The other piece with cognitive thoughts is I want to introduce to you the idea of cognitive distortions. This is kind of like our negative self-talk. We're all programmed with cognitive distortions. Shoulding is a cognitive distortion. I should, I shouldn't. That's a cognitive distortion. Jumping to conclusions. Catastrophizing. The worst thing ever is ever going to happen. I don't want to stereotype. I work with teenagers a bit. They have a bent toward catastrophizing. I mean, something happens and it feels like the world's going to end. We grow out of it, but I will say that tends to be one that I see quite a bit in the high schools with kids. Overestimating. I think that figuring out for yourself, what is your cognitive distortion? What is the thing you bent to? I'm never going to be able to. I always, right? Pay attention to how you talk to yourself or you talk to other people about your situation. Understanding what those are going to be really important. And we're going to talk about an exercise. At the very end, I'm going to send you with a bunch of different exercises that you can try. And there is something that we want to work on that really helps speak to your rational and irrational thought pattern. Your thoughts fuel your anxiety. Everything that you're thinking all the time is just pouring gasoline on the fire, if you will, if it's not positive and life-giving. And so we want to work on trying to shift those thought patterns if we can, because it will have huge gains on how you manage stress and anxiety in your life. Yeah. Yes, I can. How's that? Can you hear me now? Sort of. How about that? Good? Okay. And I'll talk a little louder too. I feel like I'm shouting, but I'll speak a little bit louder. All right, these are some other things that I would say, I would call them complexities that we would weave into a situation. Not every time, but if you add any of these into any type of life event, it's going to make the stressful situation ratchet up, if you will. So unpredictability, when the news shows up that you weren't expecting, right? It's one thing when I can plan on, this might be showing up at my door, but when, surprise, something's happening, that can ratchet up the anxiety and the stress a little bit. No ability to control, something we talk about in counseling a lot, individual work, controlling the things that we can control. right? And we can't control everything. But uncontrollability, when there really isn't anything I can do with this, I truly cannot do anything to impact this situation, I can ratchet up that stress level. Stress I didn't want. There is such a thing as positive stress, right? I'm getting married, I'm having a baby, I'm getting a new job, I'm moving to a new city. These can all be considered very positive things that can also cause stress because it's a life adjustment. So is this thing that happened something that I wanted or not? And then scale, right? Is it important or large? And only you can determine that. And did any of these things all happen at the same time? So clustering is a big one too. Sometimes you hear people say, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then what else is going to happen, right? What else is coming? That can also start to get us in that negative mindset loop too of it's just another thing. Everything always happens to me kind of a thing. So when these things are happening on top of each other, that can add to the stressful situation as well. And I was seeing nodding on those, so I imagine that kind of happens to folks one on top of next on top of next. So what are some things that we can do with it? This is where the rubber hits the road, guys. I will tell you, if you do not have an active, formal plan for a regular gratitude practice in your life on the regular every single day, I want you to do me a favor. I love a good theme, and it's Thanksgiving this month, so we could just do it for 30 days. I want to talk you through a gratitude practice. I promise you, no money back guarantee, but I'm very confident that if you start to do an active, intentional gratitude practice every single day, it will begin to change your mind shift, your mindset. So if you're looking for the hard times in the world, there's never going to be a shortage. You will always find it. There's always hard stuff. There's always sin, right? If you look for the good stuff, you will always find it. There are blessings all around us. You have to train yourself to look for them. Even the blessings in the hard, stinky stuff, okay? There is a practice. If you begin every morning, some people do it at night. They like to close out their day this way. So it doesn't matter to me when you do it. I do it first thing in the morning. As fast as you can, I don't care if it's in a pretty notebook or a Post-it note or the back of a napkin, okay? 5 things that have happened in the previous 24 hours that you are grateful for. And don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be spelled well. It has to come from your heart. It might be, I had a great cup of coffee. It might be, this nice person let me in line at the grocery store. That was really cool. My kid listened to me the first time when I asked him to do something, right? And it could be a larger scale. I got accepted in the university I was going for, right? I had a great weekend with my husband. I had whatever your heart can grab onto quickly. Here's what's going to happen. I know that tomorrow morning I'm going to write down 5 things that happened in the next 24 hours. This is probably going to be on my list tomorrow, guys. You made my list. This is a great opportunity. You will start to look throughout your day at all the little blessings that happen on the regular. The Lord brings them into your life on the regular. You just have to see them. And so if you can make a commitment for the month of November, 30 days, every morning I'm going to write down the 5 things I was grateful for in the previous 24 hours, I'm pretty confident you're going to notice a shift in your attitude and in your mindset about how you're approaching your life. And you might notice some of that stress and anxiety starts to go down. Would anybody be willing to do it? Raise your hand if you do it. All right. Pastor, you have to report in if they did it. Okay. So the other piece that I want to look at is time management. We hear this all the time. I don't have time. When am I going to have time? I'm always doing the stuff, and the things, and the job, and the kids. I don't have time. You do have time. Don't throw anything at me. You do have time. I think that when you really look closely, you might have to take out Dancing with the Stars or scrolling on your social at the end of the day. You might have to take out some of those things, but if you can figure out a way to rebalance how you are managing your time, you will find your emotions are leveling out. There is an exercise I want you to do. You don't have to do it right now, but take it away with you. If I had a whiteboard, I'd use it. There is an exercise called a balance wheel. So what you're going to do is put a big circle on a piece of paper, and you're going to make little pie pieces throughout the circle, okay? In each pie piece, you are going to list your priorities. Not what you think they should be, what they actually are. Hobbies, faith, family, finances, domestic chores. Somebody's got to clean the toilets. It's got to go on the list, right? All the things that I have to do in a day goes on the list. Then you're going to go through and you're going to put little offshoots off of those. And you're going to say, what am I actually doing to nourish this priority? If I said it was important to me, I better be doing something about it. You will find there are holes you need to fill. You will find there are unmet needs. When we are out of alignment, when we're out of balance, our anxiety is going to go up, our depression is going to increase, we're going to be crabby, right? So what we need to do is get all of those things back in alignment. If I said my family is important to me, how much of my time am I pouring into my family? If I said my faith is a priority, what am I doing outside of Sunday morning? On the regular, every day, all that I do, right? All of those different pieces. Challenge yourself to go through, and it's not an exercise to find out where am I failing. It's not an exercise to say, look at all the things I'm not doing. It's a way to figure out where do I need to plug the holes, right? It's where you're going to go through and say, okay, here's something I can do something with. Once you have your balance wheel completed, and you realize, I don't see my friends anymore, okay, what am I going to do this week to reach out, to have a phone conversation, to plan a coffee date in a few weeks, right? What am I going to do to nourish that priority? That will help you start to realign how you're doing your time. And it might mean something has to go because time is math. It's the same amount of time every day. You can count on it. Doesn't change. It's daylight savings, so it changes a little, right? But it doesn't change. Same amount of time. So you have to readjust. How am I using this time? You will see the theme in all of what I'm saying comes down to intention. It comes down to you choosing, how am I going to do the thing? How am I going to spend the resources, the money, the time, the energy? It puts that control back in your lap. It makes your anxiety, that feeling of chasing, like I don't have control, it helps that alleviate. So that's a really, really important piece. And then the self-talk, I just kind of lumped prioritization, delegation, and allowing extra time all into that same exercise. Realistic self-talk, the things you say to yourself about yourself. Be kind to yourself. And you do not need to say this out loud, but I want you to think about this later in the quiet of the day when you have a minute. What do you say to yourself about yourself? Are you reaching? God put potential in all of us. Are you reaching every single day for the potential that He built inside of you? If you are, fantastic. If you are not, it's an opportunity to course correct. It's an opportunity to realign to the cross. It's an opportunity to shift the way you're thinking about yourself, thinking about those around you, thinking about how you're relating to the world. Okay? Self-talk is an important. Your thoughts and your thoughts all the way along are very powerful. You guys know that. So are our thoughts slanted in a direction that's taking us toward something positive and life-giving, or is it holding us back? Make sense? Okay. And then we kind of already, I jump ahead on myself all the time. And then we talk about Scripture. On your handout on the bottom, I have provided probably, 8 or 10, something like that. It doesn't even touch the surface of what's in there. But here's what's cool. Check out some of these. Check out some of them on the board that I had provided earlier. Find one that speaks to you. And then print it out and put it on your refrigerator. Put it on your bathroom mirror. In my house, in my bathroom, I have the whole left side full of Scripture. Because when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember that, right? Sometimes you're visual and you need to see the reminder because you forget. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it in your car. Put these things in places, put it in your binder, your work stuff. Put it in places where you can see it as reminders. This is what you want to anchor to, okay? You don't have to put the stuff in God's hands. I love that phrase. I'm going to just put it in God's hands. It's already there. It's already in God's hands, right? You need to make sure that you're stepping back and not trying to steal the pen out of his hand. He's already writing the story. And so you can trust that, and when you can find comfort in Scripture, you will find a lot of those worry thoughts and that anxiety and those stressors, they just kind of fade. They just fade. There is a resource I put on here. The book is called You Can Trust God to Write Your Story, or Trusting God to Write Your Story. It's phenomenal. And I was going to bring my copy with you, but I keep giving it out to clients, and I'm just going to have to get another one. But you can also get it on Audible. I'm on the road a lot for my job, so I read a lot of my books by listening to them. It's fantastic, and it really helps you really understand that idea of God's got us. We're living in this one little moment while he has the whole story from beginning to end already mapped out. Stop stealing the pen. Just trust. You can only do that by staying in the Word on the regular. Focus on your blessings, praying often, finding comfort in that. Any questions on those pieces? On where to find? Any questions on where to find the Scriptures? If you don't know. Yeah. You Can Trust God to Write Your Story. I think. Hold on. I'm going to lie to you. Hang on. You Can Trust God to Write Your Story. Nancy and Robert Wolgemuth. It's on, if you didn't get this handout, sir, it's on this, and there's one in the back we can grab for you. Actually, you can have this one. And then there's another book called Choosing Gratitude. You're good. It's phenomenal. And it really helps on that. I mean, you heard me talk. I'm pretty passionate about the whole concept of gratitude. And so that's another really great resource. If you're looking to bring more of that into your life, that's another great book. Oops. Self-care. Self-care are things like the physiological things that we need to survive well. Sleep, water, exercise. It's also making sure we're nourishing the joy, right? The fun things. If you like, I don't know, cross-stitching, and you never get to do it, that's something that'll go on your balance wheel. Hobbies and recreation is usually something that takes up one of those pie pieces on that balance wheel, and it's usually the place that people need to plug a hole. Because it's kind of like, at the bottom of the list, if everything else gets done, then I'll spend some time doing things I enjoy. And focusing on one day at a time. So really learning to be in the moment, in the here and now. There is an exercise I often use with folks who are working with anxiety. I want to share with you. It might be helpful, might be not, but I'm going to walk you through this visualization. If you can, in your head, I want you to picture theater curtains, like big, velvet, heavy, in my head they're red, in yours they might be blue, theater curtains. Yes? Okay. Behind the left curtain is the past. Very often, our past is tied to depression, things that have already happened that cause distress. Behind the curtain on the right, to the right side, lives the future. Most of our anxiety and stress is tied to the future. If I do this, will that happen? What's going to happen with that situation, right? Future, anxiety, past, depression. This section right here is the here and now. It's 5 to 9 on Sunday morning, right? We spend a lot of time, even when we're present all right here, even when we're going to church, even when we're at our jobs. These curtains sneak open, and we spend a lot of time hanging out over here where we have no control, And we have a lot of time we spend over here. It's already done and gone. Can't do anything about it. That's where we hang out a lot of the time. And you are letting the very best in life pass you by because we're in the here and now. This is literally the only thing we have control over. And we don't hang out here very often. So the exercise is to tell yourself, oh, oops, the curtains are sneaking open again. I got to shut that. It snuck right open on me again. Shut it, close the curtain. Focus on living your life here. Now, I do live in the real world. There is such a thing as planning, right? Sometimes you got to open the right curtain and you got to say, oh yeah, I got to plan a babysitter. Oh yeah, I want to plan for retirement. I got to hang out there for a minute and get some things in order. That's fair, but close it then when you're done. And focus on being right here. It will help. If you can picture that, picture living your life in 1 hour increments, right? This is where I'm at right now. And then when I get to 9:30, I'm going to be focused on church. And that's all I'm going to be thinking about. I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen with the Packer game because that'll happen later, right? This is where I'm going to focus. See if it helps. Give it a whirl. Okay, let's talk anxiety in our last little stretch time here. Anxiety is actually something that's diagnosable, that gets sent into the insurance company, and is something slightly different than stress, although you will find suspiciously similar symptoms. Anxiety, however, can be completely event unrelated. Some people are hardwired. It is in their DNA. It's how they are made to have this stuff happening. It's a chemical thing. It's different. What do we do with it? Very much the same. Same coping skills. But it is different in that it doesn't have to, there can be nothing. There can be absolutely nothing happening and someone is sitting there in very debilitating anxiety. Okay? That's the difference. There are a few stats, I don't know if you can see them on the board. 40 million Americans age 18 and older affected. That's a lot of people. There is an important, I think, population missing from here, and I don't know the number, so I'm not going to make it up. But our teens, guys, they're feeling it. And I think it's very much largely tied to and connected to technology and social and how powerful relationships become when we're behind a screen instead of face-to-face, and they are feeling it. Monitor your teens. That's a side note, different topic, different presentation, different day, but they should be up there as well in their own separate little bucket. General anxiety disorder, that's that middle one. Women will have this twice as much as men. 6.8 million on these stats. Women will have this twice as much more than men. Phobias, things I'm afraid of. That's all of these different things are in the anxiety bucket. Social anxiety. It can be really difficult being in social situations when you're dealing with this. People will pre-worry about everything from who am I going to sit by, who am I going to run into, where am I going to park, where's the bathroom going to be, what is the building layout going to be. Social anxiety comes with a whole set of issues that can be really, really hard for folks. Anxiety symptoms. So again, this is where you're going to see very similar crossover to when I was talking about some of the situational stress. Physical, muscle tension, sweaty palms, headaches, breakouts, dizziness, insomnia, chest pain, changes in weight, skin breakouts. These symptoms are reported in 90% of doctor visits. It's a lot, guys. And they mimic other things, right? Heart issues or whatnot all. 90% of doctor visits, we're having conversations about what are we doing about our anxiety. In your emotions, you're going to find nervousness, moody, depression, frustration, overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed I don't know where to turn, right? That's a common one we hear. Cognitive, this is those thought loops. Worrying, trouble concentrating, indecision, right? Fidgety, nail biters, you see it in people. You sometimes can see that nervousness in people. Often, before you realize you have it, someone close to you may realize it. Others may see it in you before you see it in you. And that's important to understand as well. We're going to divide these into two categories. One is called, I mentioned, hypervigilance. This is that feeling of being like constantly on edge. What's coming around the next corner? Sometimes in domestic situations of hardship, what I don't know, when so-and-so is going to be walking through the door, I don't know which so-and-so is going to be showing up. We sometimes hear about that. You're on edge, right? Waiting for the next thing. People that have suffered trauma, PTSD, another whole other subset of anxiety, will have a startle response. Somebody knocks on the door and they jump. Noises, unexpected noises cause that startle response. That falls in that category. Muscle tension. You know, when you walk around and your shoulders are up by your ears and you're just tense, shakiness, tiredness, sleep issues. I have to believe, we're not going to raise our hand, but if I asked you to, I bet most of us at some point in our life have experienced some or all of what I'm describing. There is a thing called autonomic hyperactivity. That's a big thing. But in that, it talks about all the things our body does that we have no control over. So this would be the chills, sweating. You can't control that, right? Gut stuff. Constipation, diarrhea, I feel like throwing up, right? When people say, I'm so nervous, I feel like, ooh. Breathing. We're walking around very inefficient breathers. All of those components fall under that category of autonomic hyperactivity. So when we focus on treatment, when we're working with folks that are experiencing this, we can get very specific on do this thing, and it can have a really positive impact on decreasing that baseline. Because here's the thing, when you think of anxiety, think of it on a baseline. 10 is, I'm ready to launch into orbit. 1 is, I am really relaxed, okay? When you're hanging out at a 9 on the regular, it takes nothing to bump you over the edge, right? If we can get that baseline lowered to like a 3, right, and you'll have gusts up to maybe 5 or 6, you're still in that range where you can kind of manage what's going on as opposed to like always being on the edge of panic attacks and anxiety attacks and things like that. So those are things that when we go through treatment, specifically with individuals, those are the types of things that we want to be able to go after. I kind of hit on all of those. When we focus on this in mental health, it's really popular. Even when I do a lot of couples work, it shows up. There's stress and anxiety all over the place. It doesn't matter. Individual, couples, it's there. It's showing up. We do cognitive behavioral therapy. I tend to focus primarily on that. It's the idea that our thoughts are tied to our feelings, which are tied to our behavior. You want to change your behavior, you got to work backwards. I'm overspending, I'm overeating, I'm overdrinking, I'm crabby all the time. I'm not leaving my house. I'm lashing out at everyone. That behavior needs to change. We got to walk it backwards, and it will be how you're feeling and how you are thinking about how you interact with the world around you. It's a really important part of that treatment process. Medication. Talk to your doctor. I don't advocate for or against it. I see both. Some people are adamantly opposed to it. Some people feel like it needs to be a part of their routine. What I will tell you is behavioral therapy in conjunction with medication is always going to be better than just doing that alone. Because what happens with medication is it kind of helps you take the edge off. For some folks, they describe that. It doesn't change who you are, but it removes a hurdle so that you're able to take on some of those behavioral skills that you need to take on. And this is kind of the last piece that I know we're starting church and soon, so I just wanted to stop here for the last bit and send you off with homework. Because I think that's important for us to practice the things we're talking about. So I already walked you through the gratitude journal, which you all said you were going to do. The balance wheel, which I'm hoping some of you will go home and do. I want to also walk you through a mindfulness activity. It's very fast, right? And it's perfect because we're about to start church soon. You want to get centered on the here and now, and you want to close the curtains. What you want to do is say to yourself, name 5 things I can hear. Baby, coughing, right? The furnace, me talking. 5 things I can hear. 4 things I can see. 3 things I can smell. 2 things I feel. And if you have access to something to taste, make it good, puckery, something that'll activate your taste buds, right? 1 thing I can taste. You cannot focus on 5 things you can hear and also worry about what's going to happen in an hour. You just can't. Your brain won't do that. So you really have to make sure that you're constantly centering yourself into here and now. So a mindfulness activity like that before you go in an interview, before you go into a time with a friend or a loved one. Give them your everything. Close the curtains and get in the here and now. 5 things I can see, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can smell, 2 things I can feel. It's on your handout. Okay? I feel like I'm running into something. I hope I'm not. A breathing exercise, if you have any familiarity with a yoga breath or a pedal breath, 4-4 breathing, it's the fastest way. God designed breathing to deliver oxygen efficiently to all of our organs. We are not efficient breathers, just in general. I hold my breath. When I'm concentrating on something, I'll be like, oh, I'm not even breathing at all right now, right? Figuring out how to do intentional breathing so that you can return to previous level of functioning, it'll give you the fastest bang for your buck with any of the physiological stuff you're feeling. The physical stuff you're feeling in your body, a good breathing exercise can really be useful for that. And then talk to a counselor. If you're in a place where you can't, it's hard, I don't know how to get this all going, reach out. We love connecting with people. Talk to your pastor. We have a MAP referral program through the WELS agencies that are phenomenal. You have that as a resource. Reach out to someone to get help. Raise your hand before you're at the bottom of the pool so we can see it, right? We need to know that you need help. Don't hesitate to ask. Okay? I have those sheets I will leave in the back. Those little coping cards, throw them in your purse or your wallet or take one for your friends. I have a bunch of extras. I'm going to leave all that stuff in the back. I brought my cards because it's me, but there's all kinds of us. So there's a website on there. There's a roster of counselors in Appleton, I think is the closest one to you guys. But hop on there. We have video bios. We have, if there's a certain thing that you want to look for or try to connect with, reach out, okay, and get the help that you need. Does anybody have any questions in the last 42 seconds before I shut this off and we start church? Pastor's all ready to go back there. It's making me nervous. He got all in his robe. Okay. A minute and 42 seconds. Yes.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes.
It seems to me, when you get old, you're supposed to get wise and you have everything figured out.
Uh-huh.
What I have discovered is that transitioning from one part of your stage of your life to another is a huge stressor. It's the middle schoolers to high school to college, and old age and accepting your physical limitations. They're biggies.
I'm going to repeat that because it's really good and probably not everybody heard you. She reported this cognitive distortion that when you get older, you're wiser and should have it all figured out. But in fact, a big stressor, and I'm actually going to add that to my slide because that's a good one. Life transitions. When you are moving from one season of life to another season of life can cause a lot of stress, whether it's a little kid going from middle school to junior high and junior high to high school, to college, to married with kids, to retirement. There are different cognitive, physical, financial hardships that go with each of those different stages, and it can cause, that's a really good call out. I appreciate that. Yes? That's a really good question. What's your name? Josiah. Very insightful. So he's talking about spending time with good memories in the past. And I think that's really important. Just like the idea of closing the curtain, sometimes we have to open it to the future. Spending time in the past is not a bad thing. If you are only spending time in the past or spending most of your time in the past, that's where we tend to have trouble. But I think it's really insightful for you to recognize that there are times I want to go hang out back there. I want to access fun things, special people. And I think that is a reasonable and perfectly healthy thing to do. So I think that's a great call out. And if we're spending most of our time over there and we're missing all the stuff that's going on right here, that's where we get out of balance. So that's really excellent. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much for letting me come and visit with you. You're going to be yes. My name is Stacy Nagorski, and you are going to have Dr. Hayes. I think he's talking to you possibly about depression, but I might be wrong, so don't hold that against me. And I don't know the other person who's coming or on their topic, but I know that you're in a series, so you've got some good stuff coming up. I appreciate your attentiveness today and being in the moment with me. And if you guys do have any questions, my email address is on that card. Don't hesitate to shoot me out a message, and I'll try my level best to find an answer if I don't have one or respond in whatever way that I can, okay? Good. Enjoy your Sunday, guys. Thank you. Yes. You bet. Thank you.